Good afternoon. Welcome to Live at Lunch with your hostess, Coach Helen Bennett. I am sorry if I'm running a bit late. I actually had a last-minute brain fart about how I was going to do this today, and I quickly put together a couple of slides. The topic today is the truth, how to actually eliminate, silence, kill the incessant, exhausting, relentless food noise in our heads once and for all without needing a medication like GLP-1s or Ozempic to do it. I'm going to get real, more and honest with you today. There's going to be a little bit of tough love towards the end, but ultimately you are going to be left with no uncertainty about what it really takes to truly silence the relentless voice that is talking and chittering and chattering about food all the time. I truly understand. I want to say this up front. I truly, truly understand how awful it is to wake up and have every minute of every day feel like it's being invaded by worries about what the next meal is going to look like. What do they think if I eat this? How much should I eat? Oh my God, I've eaten too much. It's so all-consuming, no pun intended, and it takes so much bandwidth and energy to attend to that one of the greatest joys of going through this process of food freedom and doing the work in the way that truly heals us is that we are left with so much space in our minds, in our energy, and in our focus when that food noise starts to disappear. It opens up space to put our attention onto the other things in our lives. And maybe that's scary for some people. Maybe some people don't know who they'll be without this voice incessantly there. But I can tell you it's a huge relief, as I'm sure you can imagine, if you're struggling with food noise. I've created this live today because it's a really common question, particularly today with the chat about GLP-1s and how they dull food noise, which is super interesting to me as I work with clients who are actually using GLP-1s. And noticing how for some, there's just almost an immediate quieting in them of the food noise. And for others, the food noise continues. Either way we do the work, because regardless of whether the GLP-1 is helping with this or not, the work is out there for us to do to heal, to truly heal our relationship with food. And when we're talking about food noise, what are we talking about? We're talking about the mental chatter. Food noise isn't talking about actual hunger, although that can be tied into it, but it's the chatter that is the result of the hunger or the non-hunger or all the things that we're dealing with today. And I wish there was just one quick fix. I wish there was just one tool that I could give you that would take it all away. And I guess there is. I mean, you could try using a GLP-1 that might bring it down a bit. But what we find is people who are using the weight loss medications, well, they might get that initial benefit, that lovely wave of relief from the immense chat or the insane chatter about food. What tends to happen is it'll either come back, so they have to increase the dosage of the drug, or they find themselves experiencing overeating anyway and food noise as a result. So I really want to create this training today as a way of honoring all of you who are struggling and saying, hey, I get you, and I want to give you the play the long game, the sustainable long-term solution to this, where over a course of time, the volume on that food noise just dials down and down and down. Oh, look at that, until it's gone. And now, do I have some thoughts about food? Of course, I sometimes think about, actually, now that I think about it, it hasn't even crossed my mind what is lunch and dinner today, which is, I say this not to brag, but to really share with you just how far away from the incessant chit-chat and worry one can get. And I'm sure there'll come a time later today when I'll put my attention to food. And there's certainly times when I catch myself in a kind of mindless snack pattern, and I notice that, and then I've got all the skills to interrupt that. But the more I do this work, for every year that passes, the more the food noise just dials down to just a non-thing. I just don't have to worry. I'm not waking up thinking about it, right? I'm not waking up worried about it. I have no idea what I'm going to eat for dinner tonight, but I know whatever it'll be just fine. And I really want to share that with you, not to brag, but to show you that it is possible when we do the work the right way. Now, A part of me when GLP-1s came out was jealous, if I'm honest. I remember what it was like to experience that obsession, that compulsion, the constancy of those thoughts. And when I thought that there was a drug that one could take that would have taken that away, I know that 10 years ago, if you had offered that to me, I would have grabbed it with both hands in desperation. So this is coming with no judgment for anybody who's on a GLP-1. But if you're on a GLP-1, listen up, because this work is the work you can begin to do while you're on the medication to ensure that you don't need to keep ramping up the dose, and to ensure that when it's time to come off the medication, you can come off in such a way that the food noise doesn't dial right up to level 1000 again. All right. So let's dive in. If you're new to the channel, my name's Helen Bennett. I'm a coach who helps people identify the root cause of their overeating, and in this case, the food noise. And then we do the real work. We play the long game and we do the deep healing, because our overeating, our food noise, is not a problem. It is a symptom of deeper problems. And that's what we're going to get clear on today. If you join me live now or anytime in the future, please feel free to drop your comments in the chat. You can ask me your questions. You can just comment on what I'm talking about, because that's what the live is for, to give you an opportunity to engage with me in real time when your fears, your doubts, your concerns, or your joys and your celebrations come up. So I welcome that if you're ever watching one live and you catch me live, or just join me on a Monday at 1 p.m. British Standard Time, and we can chitty chat. But for now, I'm presenting this training to you. I'll keep my eye on the comments in case anything comes in. But I want to serve you today, so let's dive in. I have made a tiny little batch of slides. What I want to share with you is something that I learned. Let me just come back. What I want to share with you is something that I learned. I worked on super yachts as a chef, and a standard operating procedure as a chef on a super yacht, or as any member of crew, is to go through fire training. You have to get certain fire qualifications, because if you're on a boat in the middle of an ocean and a fire breaks out, best you know how to deal with it, because the most dangerous thing on a yacht is a fire. Because if a fire burns down your boat, you are out at sea. And that is the worst thing that can happen when you're out in the ocean. So you want to become a firefighting badass, yes, but actually better yet, a fire prevention badass. If you can understand what causes fires and put the steps in place to mitigate for that, so you can prevent a fire from even breaking out, that's step one. And step two, if a fire does break out, you want to be able to fight it quickly, efficiently, get to the root of the problem and kill it as fast as you can before it causes any major damage. Why am I bringing that up? Because the fire triangle that I'm about to share with you, the understanding of how a fire works, is probably one of the best analogies I have for what creates food noise and what creates the triggers for overeating. So I think you're really going to enjoy this. Let me share this with you again. So the fire triangle, for those of you who know about this, you're going to love this analogy. There are three things that create fire, essentially. You've got heat, oxygen, and fuel. Now, independently, they wouldn't necessarily create a fire. Just a hot old blast of air somewhere doesn't cause a fire specifically, just as a high level of oxygen doesn't cause a fire necessarily. And having a fuel source that's flammable doesn't automatically cause a fire, thank God. Otherwise, everything would be burning all the time. But, all three of those things at sufficient quantities in concert together will create the conditions from which a fire is way more likely to ignite. So if it is very hot and there's an oxygen present and a good whack of oxygen present, and there is a really flammable fuel source available, hey presto, you have the perfect conditions for a fire, particularly if, and this is our second slide, if there's a spark. So now we have a spark from the external environment comes into that perfect sort of set of conditions, and boom, the fire begins. So that's like the ignition of a car, traditional cars. I suppose maybe it's the same for electric, I don't know. But essentially, all it takes is a spark and then all the right things in conjunction to create a fire. Now, a great firefighter, once a fire has happened, your job in fighting fires is identifying as quickly as you can the best tack. Which of those sides of the triangle are you going to try and isolate first? Can you bring down the heat? Can you cool cool, what we call boundary fires. So we'll cool the boundary, bring that heat down. Can you bring down the oxygen, smothering it maybe with sand or something like that? Or can you take away the fuel source? If it's an electric fire, can you actually shut off the power? That'll stop the fire very, very fast. So if you can get rid of one of those sides of the fire triangle and know which one to tackle first, you're going to be able to put that fire out incredibly quickly. What, Helen Bennett, has this got to do with food? Well, I'm so glad you asked. So let's talk about the food freedom triangle. This is what I see all the time. There's 3 sides to it. We have the physical, usually things like hunger or exhaustion. We have the mental, the thoughts that we're thinking, and we have the emotional. Now, if we're not hungry and we're thinking good thoughts and we're in a nice calm space, are you likely to overeat? Nah, probably not. Like, some of you are going to argue with me and say boredom eating, but I'll challenge you on that, and that's slightly different. That's probably a whole other life. But in this case, if you're nice and comfortable and satiated, just like nice and neutral, you're thinking really good, happy, healthy thoughts, and your emotions are just calm and peaceful, chances are in that space you're highly unlikely to overeat beyond hunger. But if you're hungry and you're exhausted, or let's put it this way, if it's 6 p.m., you've hardly eaten anything that day, you've been running around all day, you're absolutely starving, you've had nothing but demands on you, you're shattered, all you want is a moment to yourself, that's starting to ask for trouble. Then paired with that, a few thoughts that don't serve us, maybe some negative critical thoughts, maybe some self-doubt or frustration, paired with, actually, I went to emotions next, paired with frustration, desperation, hopelessness, despair, loneliness. There's your emotional side of the triangle. You have all those 3 things in place, and we've got food close by, and we add one little external trigger. Maybe somebody says something, or you watch something on social media that makes you feel even more lonely or more frustrated, or dials up that mental chitter chatter, or you wait another hour and you're even more hungry and more tired. And all it takes is a little bit of a trigger, and boom, an automatic automatic set of habits kick off, and you start finding yourself reaching for food in that kind of almost autopilot way. So given all those 3 things, if we want to solve this problem with overeating, and I want to just say as well, in this case with the food freedom triangle, and it's the same with the fire triangle, you don't even actually need an external trigger, a spark to hit for you to begin to overeat. Sometimes it's just when each side of the triangle is so hot, your thoughts are running hot, your emotions are running hot, and you're very, very hungry and very, very tired. That can be enough to create the desire to overeat. So how is this related to food noise? Let me bring this back. Let's get back over here. Food noise is this mental chatter that has resulted from sort of these hot zones on the triangle. If we have been dieting for ages, if you're a yo-yo dieter and you've been on all sorts of diets, and you'll hear me harp on about this ad infinitum, chances are your whole body, whether you like it or not, and it's doing this to save you, is on high alert and in constant kind of vigilance for food and the next meal. If you've put your body through prolonged periods of heightened restriction and starvation, or it's been through a really traumatic experience of that, it can take a while for it to feel safe that food's coming. And because of that, your nervous system is now highly alert for food. One of the things that blew my mind I wanted to share with you was I saw a post on Instagram that Henry Cavill, so Superman, he was preparing for a shoot where he had to be topless and he needed to be really, really ripped. And one of the ways they get to that point where they look extremely ripped is to dehydrate themselves before the shoot. And he said he was so dehydrated that he could smell water. Now think about this. If you are so overly restricted, and have been in the past, that your body's job is to get you so heightened and attuned to food. So he became so restricted to water that his entire nervous system had a heightened sensory experience in attunement for water. And the same thing with you. Now, you might say, well, Helen, I haven't been dieting for a while. Why is it still happening? Because even if you're thinking, I should start on Monday, I'm too fat, I need to go on a diet, even the diet thoughts, even the thought of the restrictions you're going to do tomorrow or in the future can create that kind of physiological response where there becomes a heightened attunement. Your thoughts become focused on food. Your whole nervous system becomes alert to every experience of food on social media, on TV. Somebody talks about it. You see somebody in a restaurant eating and you're aware of it in a way that you wouldn't be if you were trusting and knew that food was coming and you'd done all this work. So part of that food noise, that like mental thinking about food, may well be coming from that restrictive past paired with current thoughts about what you shouldn't be eating and how you shouldn't be eating and what diet you're going to go on and when you're going to lose weight. Okay. The second thing, so that's the physiological, is like a physiological attunement that's creating kind of mental chatter because it's got to get you thinking about food because it needs you to eat, because the fear is you're going to starve it again. So the physiology is tuned and dialed in to everything to do with food. There's like a vigilance around it. Now let's go to the mental. Now this is all mental because we're talking about food noise, but we're recognizing that there's a physiological influence on this mental chitter chatter, right? But the other bit that I really want to draw your attention to on the mental side of the triangle is all the rules, all the things that diet culture might have instilled that are in your head, all the shoulds, all the bad versus good foods, the constant kind of vigilance for, did I do right or wrong? Did I pass or fail today? And when we feel like we've got to hit certain targets and we've got to, it's black or white, if I've eaten this, I've failed. We become even more attuned to that sense of failure or breaking the rules because we don't want to fail, or we don't want to feel guilty from our rule set that we've created or that we've been influenced to adopt. Let's put it that way. So part of the work is actually starting to witness all of the thoughts that are food related. And when we see them, we see a lot of them are about sort of this hypercritical analysis of whether it's correct or not. I had a client who told me a few weeks ago that he felt shame the minute he eats sugar, because we're in this world that's demonized sugar. So he felt the emotion of shame, but the story was sugar is bad. So we've got to begin to break those stories, because if we have a story that sugar is bad that kicks off in our head, of course, we're going to start thinking about, should I eat this? Shouldn't I eat this? I'm a bad person, which then impacts our emotional set point. Now we're feeling guilt, we're feeling shame, we're feeling failure, we're feeling frustration that we can't stop. All of those things, which creates even more food or even more noise around this, because the truth is all three sides of the triangle are interacting all the time. That's why in this slideshow, I made this triangle a kind of, it's not just straight. It moves. The physical and the mental and emotional all crossing all the time. But the good news about that is what you do for one, you do to the other. So if you get better and better at listening to your hunger and really trying to catch that satiety point when your body says enough and stopping, and I acknowledge it's not easy. And when you actually recognize that you're overexhausted and you get really good at prioritizing more rest, more sleep, more self-care, more downtime, more play for you to breathe, And if you start noticing all those mental thoughts and the shoulds and the rules and the stories you're carrying about your weight and what people think about you, and you begin changing those in a really empowering way, they're all talking to each other. What you do to one does to the other. And then, of course, our emotions are interesting because they are a combination, our emotions, of physical and mental. They're a combination of the two. When we have a feeling, interestingly, we tend to have a physiological reaction. We might feel fear in our stomach. But then the question is, well, what is the story? And interestingly, emotions are a combination of both physical and mental. So if you're able to bring frustration down from a level 10 to a level 5, trust me, it's impacting in a positive way the physical and the mental. If you can take a hot emotional state and dial it down, you'll be dialing down the mental, you're cooling down the physical. I'm going to use that fire analogy because it's a good one. And similarly, if you If you improve the mental, you'll improve the physical and the emotional. You improve the physical, you improve the mental and the emotional. This is why something like a workout is so powerful, because all you've done is change your physical state. You start moving your body. And what do you know? You're starting to feel better. It's like you're sweating out the negative thoughts, and your emotional state often improves. So what I love about this triangle is we realize we've got agency. And if we might be struggling to change our thoughts, then at least we still have agency over our body, or we can start to cultivate the agency over our emotions. So all three of these parts of the triangle play an absolutely massive role in food noise specifically, because all of them are creating a more dialed up mental response that feels like food noise. But food noise, when we really take it all the way back, is a hypervigilance that has come about for one reason and one reason only. And here's where there's a little bit of tough love. We obsess and worry about food only and only if we've come to believe that the food that we are ingesting is wrong for some reason. And for the most part, I'm being very careful with my words, in the most part, the reason we have adopted is because we are not lovable enough in the bodies we're in. And therefore, they need to change. And if you think about it, if you dial it back to if you strip away the layers of the onion, underneath the food noise is a big fat story that says, you are not lovable as you are. And the thing that will make you lovable is changing your body shape. And the way we are currently told to change our body shape, because we, aside from exercise, we're not hearing a lot of other options out there, is by changing your food intake. And that base layer story, I am not enough the way that I am. And in order to be enough, I need to change my shape and my size. And in order to do that, I need to change my diet, creates the diets that we did that created more food noise, and all the rules and the regulations and the good and the bad and the shame. So it's actually there right at the heart of the onion. This is the uncomfortable truth. This is the driving force of all of it. Your body wants you to be happy, healthy, and free. Eating is a natural response that is as natural as breathing. We only hyperfixate on it because we believe that if we could control it and change it in some way, then we would be lovable and enough. Now, it's a little bit reductionist because I acknowledge some people began with emotional eating, not with the diets, but most of the people who reach out to me, this journey, when we root it far enough back, starts with the first diet. And the first diet only happened because they believed they were not enough in the body they were in, and they could be enough if they could change that body. The food noise only truly dies when we begin to truly shed or change that story, which helps us shed and work on the layers above it. So it's top down and it's bottom up. You can work both sides. But really, all of it is a result of that one thing. Our fear of being abandoned, not belonging, not being loved, exactly as we are, creates a absolute shit show of thoughts and behaviors which lead to compulsion and obsession over time. And then they become hardwired. So even if you have the best mindset in the world, you can still be left with some habitual kind of trigger and response patterns that we have to break through. This is complicated. There's no quick fix for this. There's no pill. There's no drug that can make this go away permanently. But there is a permanent fix. And it's the slow, sustainable one where we take that methodology and we work each side of the triangle while simultaneously rebuilding that sense of worth, that we are deserving of love and care, at the very least from ourselves, on any given day. And we are lovable just as we are. It's a lot of work. So if you're watching this and you were hoping for like one quick tool that would kill the food noise, I wish I could give it to you, but I can't. I wish I could, but I can't. There's only one way to truly silence the food noise, and that's to do the work. And very few of us have ever got out of this without help. Very few of us, because it is tricky, because it's very hard for us to feel that we are lovable without somebody else's help to guide us there when we are so convinced of the opposite. It's hard to believe that we might actually be lovable in the body we're in today, no matter where it is. It takes the love and the belief of someone else to help us get there, for the most part. I believe in you, and I believe you can do this. And sometimes you're going to need someone like me to believe in you in the days that you can't believe in yourself. Because this journey is bumpy and it's messy and it's complicated. But it's also kind of simple and beautiful. And if you're just willing to go step by step through the process and do the work, be relentless, never give up, and have somebody there to believe in you on the days when you can't believe in yourself, so you keep moving forward, you will break free. You will get to the point where you haven't even thought about lunch or dinner. And it's not because you're so busy, stressing. It's just no big deal. You'll be able to get to that point where you can have crisps and chocolates and cakes in the same room as you and just forget that they're there, because it's no big deal. It's just food, because you trust you can eat when you want, you can stop when you're full, and your body does not define your lovability in this world. Oh my God, I can feel another 100 million questions and pushbacks on that last statement, but we're going to leave it there. So in conclusion, the story that we've told ourselves about not being enough has created a bunch of things on top of that have led to an incessant compulsive food noise. One of the biggest drivers of this was dieting, that has a aftershock effect that can last decades. And so we want to get busy bringing all of, tearing that all down, cooling all those sides of the triangle, dialing up the joy and the calm and the peace, at the very least inside ourselves, and the feeling that we are deserving and loving of our own respect on our worst days and of other people's respect on our good days. And that is the only way to break free of food noise. And it can take some time, but not as long as you think. And I imagine that you're watching this because you want that. GLP-1 or not, this work is out there for all of us if we truly want to free ourselves of that compulsive relationship with food. So with that in mind, I'm going to encourage you to reach out and get some help. I'd love it to be me. My link will be in the description to book a call and chat to see what I offer. There's multiple different ways to get help. I offer a DIY option. There'll be group coaching coming along shortly. And then obviously there's private coaching, which is the best. If you resonate with me, just book a call. You've got nothing to lose. It doesn't have to be me, though. If I've spent 40 minutes or 28 minutes today helping you realize that actually the best thing in the world you can do is maybe get some support on this journey, because it's messy and complicated and there's no quick fix, then it'll be worth it. And you can send me a message in 3 years' time going, thank God, because I'd love you to work with me, but I'm not attached to that. I just want you to work with someone who you resonate with, who will help you break free. Because the thought that we can do it on ourselves takes us back to that place where we're almost not enough and not deserving of even getting help. And we stay trapped there for so long. And Lord knows I did. I remember the first time I invested $900 in a coaching program. It felt like I was basically selling my left leg. It was so uncomfortable to invest in myself and to reach out for help. But honestly, that was the biggest shift I made in my journey. It was a transformational moment. It wasn't the whole solution, but it sent me in a new trajectory, and I'm forever grateful. And I don't believe I could have got there alone. I think this work requires that we do the very thing we're most afraid of, which is be vulnerable to another human being, to be willing to be rejected and not enough, but instead be embraced and loved and cared for and supported and encouraged. So I'd love that to be me, and my link's in the description. But if it isn't, please, bloody hell, get yourself some support. If you enjoyed that video and you found it valuable, please smash the like button and maybe hit save so you've got it there saved for you on a day when you forget that this isn't a quick fix and we can't just control ourselves out of food noise. We actually got to do the hard yards. All right, lovely. Big love to you. Have a beautiful week further, and I'll see you next week on Monday live at lunch. We're going to be talking about fat, like when we feel fat and what to do about it. Having a fat day. That's what we're going to talk about next week. I'll see you then.